right. All right. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On tonight's show, I have a returning guest, a special guest. We've done a lot of shows. Our last show was about Forrest Ackerman. He was the publisher of many science fiction novels or books for decades, and we're very well known in Hollywood. He was also a Hollywood memorabilia collector, but our Forrest Ackerman interview is on my speaker channel. If you get a chance, go check that out. But we're going to kind of stay in that same territory and cover a book that I was interested in, never read until now. But the title of the book is Stranger in a Strange Land. It was published in 1961 by Robert Heinlein. He's considered one of the top three science fiction writers of all time in the same field or group with Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke. And it's a fascinating book. And one of the reasons I wanted to read it was also because the name of the main character is Valentine Michael Smith. And that was also the name of one of Charles Manson's children, was Valentine Michael Manson. That was a son he had with Bruner. I think she was one of the first members of the Manson family or the Manson group. So it was always of interest about this book. And I had a very topical understanding, a much deeper understanding now. And I understand kind of Heinlein's sensibilities. And so both I and Vallibus have read that book together. So he has a bunch of comments. I do as well. So Vallibus, are you there?
William Ramsey, thanks for having me back again for another discussion here today. Look forward to the topic of conversation. As you mentioned, it is a very logical kind of subsequent conversation, conclusion, extension of our last conversation regarding Forrest Ackerman and his, science. His group of science fiction.
Yes. Yeah. No,
writers.
I totally.
Essentially, his group, because he was the publisher of science fiction writers in the little club they maintained.
Right. So
Which
we talked about that club, and we talked. Correct. Right. So that club that was in the Valley, and about Hubbard and Heinlein. Actually, I did some research, and he actually attended one of the Gnostic masses that was held by Jack Parsons are in that environment. So Heinlein, so he was familiar.
He's an interesting character.
Very interesting character. He said he intended a performance saving the program a paper-bound copy of Crowley's Book of the Law for future reference. Well, he references that Book of the Law in Stranger in a Strange Land. I don't know if you caught that, but the history book about Heinlein was titled Robert H. Heinlein in Dialogue with His Century by William Patterson. So that covers that. But
I did not catch that in the book. He mentions the Book of the Law.
Yeah, he does. So in the sequence where Valentine Michael Smith is traveling with his girlfriend, they stop in Palo Alto, and Valentine Michael Smith goes into the Hoover Institute and reads all of the kind of great books. And the sequence goes: the Talmud, Kama Sutra, Bibles in various versions, the Book of the Dead, Book of Mormon, Patty's precious copy of New Revelation, Apocrypha of various sorts, the Quran, the Unabridged Golden Bough, The Way to Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, sacred writings of a dozen other religions, major and minor, even such deviant oddities as Crowley's Book of the Law. So that's like the direct.
Oh, yeah. I guess I got distracted there on the Mormon piece because I grew up Mormon, and anytime I see that stuff referenced, it always catches my eye quicker.
Interesting. So what was your kind of first impressions of the book?
But they're very much similar organizations in many strategical aspects.
In what, like Mormonism and what, Crowley's?
Right? Yeah, well, Thelema, Scientology, they're all kind of ancient alien cargo cults in a sense. And believing that this planet was seeded by aliens at a time long ago. And they all have that core belief to their systems.
Right. The Book of Mormon has what? It's there's Kolob, isn't that the foreign?
Right. Correct. You're
Kolob,
right.
And the God is in another planet, right? And then
God's a man, much like humans. This is their belief of Mormonism. Right. Much like humans, God lives on a planet Kolob in the Sirius star system, and all these, whether it's the Rosicrucians, whether it's the Thelemites, whether it's the Thule Society, all these groups, they all have interest in the Sirius star system.
Sirius star, right? The dog star. And then Hubbard's what was the name of his god, or that sent beings to the earth? It was
Lam. Was it Lam?
No, that was Crowley's. Crowley's like the god lamb. That was
so Hubbard's Xenu.
Xenu, thank you. Yeah, so Xenu. So,
yeah, Xenu.
So they have
my ancient alien different mixed up.
Right. Yeah, well, it's hard to keep track. But anyway, just for people who don't know, Stranger in a Strange Land is about the arrival of somebody from Mars, a Martian named Valentine Michael Smith, and comes to Earth, and he is, in my opinion, the stranger in the strange land. So he is this alien and observes and tries to learn about the country of the, and he's becomes kind of a celebrity in his own right. So he comes to Earth and he has his own special powers, and they keep in the very beginning. Heinlein keeps describing him as the face of an angel, and Smith is this Valentine Michael Smith. You can see kind of why Manson would be interested in this person, because he was intuiting everything. They invented this word grok, right, for stranger in a strange land. So Valentine Michael Smith is constantly grokking, which is kind of like an empathic understanding, much more is the way I interpreted it. But very interesting kind of sequence of events of him relating to human beings, and he becomes the richest man in the world based upon other stuff. And so, anyway, any introductory comments?
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, I like where you started there. I can see where Manson would definitely have an interest, as the character is a very polarizing figure, not unlike Charles Manson himself.
Right. True.
He's anyone who met Manson had a very ardent opinion, whether it's positive or negative. There was no really in between. And he definitely, if you encountered the man, through many accounts, it seems that everyone recalled their encounter, whether it would be good, positive or negative.
Kind of like a Valentine Michael Smith, right?
Yeah, it seems that's kind of what I thought about when I read it. Yeah, that's kind of when I was reading it, like I kind of thought, well, I could see why, because you had mentioned Manson made his family read the book, correct?
That's what they said, and then I read somewhere else that Manson said it wasn't important, but why did Manson name his son from Bruner, Valentine Michael Manson? I mean, it's very distinct.
So, in kind of in that vein of you mentioning that, I kind of read that. Oh yeah, and I kind of just in that same vein, I guess, kind of thought Manson kind of maybe viewed himself as that character in a sense.
Right, I agree. I definitely agree.
And again, we're talking about the same kind of group of people. Again, Manson identified himself as a Scientologist.
Right, he was clear. He went all the way through Scientology. So
right, correct. So yeah, he and this is by his own admission and his own attempts, in which apparently, according even to the Church of Scientology's accounts, he did attempt to try to make some sort of connections within the celebrity center in Hollywood at various times.
Oh, interesting. Well, they all covered up how much Manson was networked in Hollywood. Everybody didn't know Manson after the murders, but he was very
big time
networked. Yeah. He ran
networked in, and he also, these women didn't come from, just didn't come out of the ether. He was running these women as part of a modeling and talent agency.
Right, a cover for prostitution, right? So Correct. He was a pimp. So he's a sophisticated pimp. So he's kind of like Epstein before Epstein in a way. I don't know how much blackmail he was using, but he definitely was funneling girls around Hollywood, yeah.
And, Manson himself is just such an interesting character. So I can kind of see those correlations too in reading the story that Heinlein wrote of this in Stranger in a Strange Land. Is, I mean, not like the plot points, but kind of just generally speaking, you kind of can just see where that is kind of Manson.
Yes, no, good point. Because like Manson was his own religious figure, right? So he's very similar to Valentine Michael Smith, like his own kind of religious figure who had kind of
and he kind of seemed like alien to everybody. No one had seen somebody like Charles Manson before.
But like Valentine Michael Smith, at the arc of the whole book, he becomes a reverend in this weird church of all worlds. So in some ways, like Manson had his own family with his own kind of weird view. Like there was his cosmology. They went into that went to the desert, and there was the hole that led to hell or whatever. Like he was really working his followers over in a big way.
And it kind of sounds like the Manson religion that he was running amongst his family was kind of similar to the Church of All Worlds, in the sense that it was kind of
really was,
a neo-pagan kind of organization based upon
a lot of sexually charged.
It's very sexually charged, very focused on the environment. That's Manson right there.
Really true. Their correlations are really stark. They're very, to me, obvious. Yeah.
Yeah, it really jumped out at me. I don't think that's really well known about Manson, how much he was more of an environmentalist type character.
Right. I think he had Atwa, right? Wasn't that the acronym for his thing?
That's kind of where that religion was built around in the story as well.
Right. Do you remember Manson's Atwa, AAT acronym? Do you ever hear of Atwa?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't remember the precise, the definition of it. What it spells out. Is it air?
Air, trees, water, animals.
There we go. Yep. That was kind of the core belief system of Charles Manson.
Right. The ecological belief system propounded by Charles Manson. Yeah. So he had his own kind of, worldview. But what are your kind of first impressions when you're reading through, other than the correlations with Charles Manson?
Yeah, really, honestly, that screamed to me, like the entire story. Like, maybe because maybe a little bit because I was set up knowing that Manson had handed this book to his family and made them read it and all. But again, the whole storyline just screams Charles Manson to me, from the cult, the way the cult set up, the philosophical concepts of the cult, the alien nature of the character. Because looking at the 1950s, and into the 1960s, where Manson, the namesake Charles Manson derives from the mid to late 1960s. There, he was an alien in a strange, he was a stranger in a strange land in Hollywood and in California in general. There was not a lot of people like him, especially, reading comments from even the Hollywood crowd, like Neil Young, for example. Very positive comments on Charles Manson, and he very much speaks of him as being this character totally unlike anyone else.
But there are also themes within
I think
Stranger
that's
in a
when I read the story
Land.
of. Yeah. No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that Heinlein, it's not a Christian. It has Christian overlap. The main character, Valentine, has a Christ element to him as somebody coming to Earth and then dying at the end. There's going to be tons of spoilers for this book, so don't listen. Right. You might want to read this book before listening to this all the way. But he follows this. He's hinted at that he's an angel, right? So he's hinted at, but also their worldview is very collective consciousness, collectively God awareness. It's not that it's not the kind of Old Testament Judeo-Christian view of there's a God in heaven, right? So what Valentine Michael Smith preaches is this kind of thing that's very Manson-ish in some ways.
Yeah, it's very Gnostic-like.
Yeah, Gnostic, yes. Thou art God, I am God. I didn't know that was exactly repeated so often throughout that book.
Yep.
That's
and that's another correlation. If you're looking for a correlation between kind of the Scientology Thelemite concepts that are displayed there with Manson or with Heinlein story, the whole I am God Gnostic belief system is pretty rampant through Mormonism as well.
Well, you're going to be a God. If you're in Mormonism and you're doing it right, eventually you will be elevated to God status.
Yeah, exactly. You're your own God. You get your own planet.
You have your own wives. You populate. So it's very sexual.
Very
Mormons,
sexual. Yeah, right.
Yeah. How many kids did Joseph Smith have that were known?
Very sexual and very agnostic. You are your own God.
Right. Yeah. So and then he has
Mormons
and Valentine,
notorious for that.
right. Yeah, and Valentine Michael Smith has magical powers, so you can see this kind of superpower person that a lot of these guys are into the New Age to do, but telekinesis and hyperconsciousness or mind reading, right? So there's all these elements are there.
There was a lot of those concepts in there as well, which again falls right within that circle of activity of Thelemite Scientologists, because that's precisely what they're into. The core belief systems that they maintain is that they can unlock secret powers within their own mind in which to become superhumans. Right. Quite literally, in fact, because the Church of Scientology just dumped about $60 million in recent years into the construction of a new facility there in Clearwater, Florida, at their home base there. And it's literally called the Superpowers Building.
Wow.
So,
well, that's what you're going up that ladder to get, or going through all those trainings, is to have clear. You're supposed to have power over matter, energy, space, and time when you're done. That's the whole thing, right?
Yep, precisely.
That's the hub.
And in developing those, you become a new human. And, that's literally what they call them. It's a stage above regular humans.
Right, and that's fascinating that you say that, because that's what Valentine Smith becomes. He becomes kind of a Hubbard figure who's teaching the Martian language and how he is to this whole followers, right? So he becomes a religious leader, but also a cult leader.
Exactly. Yep. He picked up on the exact same thing.
Because you have all these circles, so almost this kind of cult degree thing is worked into this book. So you try to get to the ninth circle with Valentine Smith, and one of the things I copied and pasted was day after day he screens hundreds of people to find a few dozen. So Valentine Smith is working through the population, and out of those, very few trickle into the nest, and he trains them further. And someday Mike will have some of us so thoroughly trained that we can go out and start other nests, and then we can begin to snowball. None one of us, even us in the nest, are really trained. So he's actually processing human beings like a cult leader would, right? Not like somebody in a church.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. And again, it has some very serious religious overtones, not just undertones. And the title of the book is a direct quote from the King James Bible.
Right. It was Exodus 22, right? Something like that.
It's definitely Exodus. Exodus, yeah. 2:22, right.
Yeah. And also, you can see Heinlein's, you did more research on Heinlein's background.
Hide much there when you're doing that.
Right. Can you talk about Heinlein's background and who he was as a person and how that influenced the book?
Sure, and maybe that's just the law enforcement history of career of mine in my past that makes me look at someone's bio before I start understanding what they're writing about. But yeah, to kind of know where they're coming from. But yeah, Heinlein's an interesting character because he himself was and this is not abnormal for science fiction writers. He was an intelligence officer in World War II. Very common. Without fail. I mean, the OSS, the Office of Strategic Services that formed the CIA in the aftermath of World War II, they're all writers, and predominantly fiction writers and science fiction writers at that. For example, Corbin Smith, he was the head of psychological operations for the U.S. Army. He was the U.S. Army officer in World War II, and had a psychological operations. His real name, though, is Paul Linebarger. That's the U.S. Army officer. Corbin Smith was his science fiction writer pen name.
Oh,
so all of these guys. Now he was L. Ron Hubbard's college roommate, and L. Ron Hubbard actually stole that man's. No, Linebarger.
Okay.
I'm just trying to build a kind of the bigger picture here of the background of all these guys. Heinlein's just part of a larger circle of people who seemingly were all military intelligence officers in World War II turned science fiction writers. Again, so L. Ron Hubbard's college roommate, Paul Linebarger was his name. His pen name, Corbin Smith. He actually wrote the book on psychological warfare for the U.S. Army. And L. Ron Hubbard stole much of his biography and claimed to be his own. For example, Linebarger spoke 7 different languages, and L. Ron Hubbard would later claim to also speak 7 different languages.
I see.
So, and Heinlein is of that same crew. He's a Navy intel communications officer in World War II. His brother, in fact, was a 2-star general for the United States Air Force. And they actually have a family history of fighting wars here in this country. The Heinleins have, fought for the United States military in every war since the Revolution. And as a result of that, their family is of the same. Is Heinlein a member of the Society of Cincinnati, which was George Washington's secret society that he made out of his army officers? I don't know if Heinlein was, but somebody of his family tree certainly is.
Right. And there's a huge Society of Cincinnati,
so
a very ornate building right in D.C. Yeah, please continue.
No, yeah. Well, the Society is an interesting group because they're really at the heart of many, many activities in this country to date. When you have, for example, just off the top of my head, the McCains, John McCain, the senator who recently passed, was number 3. John McCain 1 and 2, his father and grandfather, they were the only father-son 4-star general duo in the United States history. Both individually members of the society, because it's a hereditary organization. So it's passed down from father to son. But it doesn't always work that way, because individuals such as Winston Churchill, was a member, and Winston Churchill, the British Prime Minister during World War II, who was an ardent hater of the Nazis, rightfully so. He was a member, and it was through his mother, because his grandfather had no sons. He only had a daughter, so went through the mother.
The mother was American, yeah.
Down to Winston Churchill. So it's an interesting organization as far as his mother was American, correct? Yes. However, it is also a French society, so there's members from the French side and the American side. For example, George Washington was the head of the American side of the society, where his counterpart, Marquis de Lafayette, the French general, was in charge of the French society.
Gotcha.
And it continued on well after the war, because you had folks like Napoleon who took over in the immediate aftermath. He's pardoning all the French society members from prison, although Lafayette got banished to America. But so just to make the point that the society is a very powerful organization. They're involved in a lot of things. Most people have never heard of them. But Robert Heinlein, absolutely, his family, if not himself, a member of that organization.
Right, but he was also, Heinlein was what, at the military academy, right? Wasn't he a West Pointer?
I believe he had a stint with the Naval Academy.
So he's in Annapolis. They wouldn't let him in because his brother was already serving, but I think eventually he went in. So he was at the higher, echelons of the military.
Yeah, he tried to get into the Naval Academy, I think, and then ended up going, yeah, exactly. Eventually got through, became a naval officer, correct, yeah. So, yeah, he's definitely an interesting character. Regarding his more of the thelemic kind of connections of the man, he's very interesting in that respect. He literally gave the play-by-play on national broadcast, the national TV broadcast of the Apollo 11 moon missions.
Wow.
He gave that with, I believe Walter Cronkite.
Right, but
so he's
this
there
is
with
also
Walter Cronkite doing the broadcast of the Apollo 11 moon missions.
Right, but do you know who else they had for commentary was Arthur C. Clarke? So you had two very well-known,
right? Exactly. So you have the other
kind of Gnostic,
three, like
occultist, commenting on the supposedly real event, right?
Exactly. Supposedly real event run by a Nazi, an ardent Nazi at that, very serious Nazi.
Make a paperclip,
Werner von Braun. Yeah, very serious Nazi. And on top of that, I mean, if you just look at it from the basic fundamental elements of the situation, you have a thelemic ritual that created the fuel for the rockets, the solid state rocket fuel, and Jack Parsons' sex magic ritual in the Pasadena desert, which created that fuel. He himself admitting that he's not a chemist, he's merely a magician.
Magician, right. Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, there may be a real connection between Heinlein and Parsons. Like Heinlein may have, I suspect in my gut that there's some connection there, that he knew what Parsons was up to.
I mean, there's certainly within the same circle of people at the same time doing the same activities, so it certainly seems reasonable. Well,
just like you said, his biographer said he attended the meetings in Hollywood, and that's probably had Parsons at least there, and some of these other people. I mean, the founder of the potential is that Heinlein could have been at a Gnostic mass where the founder of the whole homosexual rights movement was at, and Parsons.
Yeah, I mean, and very likely was a Scientologist at least at one point in time in his life, because per the admission of Ackerman, the publisher of that science fiction writers group and member of the group, he stated in a documentary interview in the late 90s before he passed in the early 2000s that they were all members of Scientology in the early stages.
Right. It's incredible.
The club, that is. They were all the members of the club. I think he says it so nonchalantly, like, we all tried out,
And there are pictures, like, even on Heinlein's, even his Wikipedia page, he's hanging out with all these guys. He's hanging out with Clarke. He's hanging out with Asimov. So it's a relatively rarefied circle.
Yeah, and look at his circle of friends there. Those three guys, and they're all so Heinlein is credited himself with writing Starship Troopers, correct? However, Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke, they're all meeting frequently, having coffee and bouncing ideas off each other while he's writing that story, kind of deal. Right. So they're all kind of in that same mix when he's writing that story. And the other two, amongst other activities with those three men, including the Apollo moon mission, play-by-play, etc. Well, the other two folks besides Heinlein, they're confirmed. Well, not necessarily confirmed, but Arthur C. Clarke was a diddler. He got banished from the United Kingdom to Sri Lanka for molesting young boys.
Yeah, he was doing it there too. That was all covered up. That was all spiked. But I have the original stories. They went. I mean, I think that. He was saying they used to go to this ping pong place and pay for different.
Yeah, I think they were interested in stopping him. The United Kingdom was just interested in him doing it somewhere else. You know what I mean? That's kind of the way I took it. Was looking at the facts of the situation there. And then Isaac Asimov, his son, who literally lives off his father's proceeds in life and royalties, was found to be the largest producer of child pornography in American history.
Yeah, he had the largest collection of child porn in history, right? And then he got a slap on the wrist for having.
I mean, he barely got a slap on the wrist. He got a tap on the wrist.
Yeah, they gave him the Hunter Biden treatment.
By Robert Mueller of the Mueller Report and FBI. He was the U.S. attorney there at the time.
Oh, my gosh. And Robert Mueller was directly tied to Epstein.
Asimov's son, I mean, he wasn't only... Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, these circles are not very large. They're very small circles of these people. And, as far as Asimov's son goes, he wasn't only distributing pornography and collecting it, he was producing it. And I've read some of the investigatory documents involved in that case. And the investigators identified some of the child victims as being locals to the San Jose, California area. And in fact, no one did anything about it.
Wow.
So they didn't go save. No one saved these kids. This is the statements of the detectives of the case that no one did. There was no follow up.
Wow.
Because they passed it off to the feds from the state level. So They obviously didn't have any more hands on, and the feds didn't do anything. And apparently, some of these children were never saved.
Sick. Yeah, that's disgusting. So Heinlein's network with all these guys. Not only do these folks
have some very...
No, go ahead.
Yeah, but we're talking like extreme political power. Like, we're not even just discussing like science fiction or strange cult activities. I mean, that's a level of political power that I'm not even familiar with. And I'm not sure you have some experience in that department if you're familiar with that level of political power either. To see that somebody of that ilk and that nature can just go walk free without any punishment really whatsoever.
Yeah, that's disgusting. So Heinlein's networked in these groups.
What I'm getting at is Isaac Asimov must have been a powerful man amongst the cult network.
I see. I wouldn't be surprised. He kind of had a terrible ending. He was one of the early guys who had a blood transfusion, got HIV, and died. Do you know that?
Right. Yeah, this is a public story.
Yeah.
It's a public story. But when you're part of a sex cult, I question such stories.
Well, that's a good question. So do you think that Heinlein was part of that kind of behavior?
I mean, if he wasn't, he encircled himself at all times with these people.
Right. And it's in the book. Like, that's the feel of it.
They were his friends. They were his professional associates. If he was not involved and engaged in those same activities, it would be at least a stretch to my imagination to imagine a situation where he's not.
Right.
And to that same note, the political power of all of this. I mean, you can, if you read where the Epstein story goes, the John Podesta email releases of October of 2016. I mean, it became pretty evident reading those at least to me, that John Podesta's, if he's not himself, he's associated with Thelema, because in order to provide somebody a quote unquote thelemic favor of a face-to-face meeting with Barack Obama, well, John Podesta cannot provide that thelemic favor unless he understands what a thelemic favor would be.
The word thelema is in there. It's there, but you're absolutely right. You're one of the first people who said that, is because they distinctly use that term in an unusual way. Can you do me a thelema? It's like a different grammatical thing than just saying the word
face-to-face meeting with Barack Obama.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. Yep. Yeah. It seems, and there's some more undertones of thelema in there, which also include emails where Kamala, I'm about to call her Kamala Harris's sister, is involved in a lot of those communications.
Wow, I didn't know that.
She's right there in the CC line of a lot of the Podesta emails.
I wasn't aware of that. I'm not surprised though.
I'll happily send it over your way.
Please do. So, wow. Yeah, and Heinlein had a big, long career.
So,
I mean, this was
the
not
point
his
being
best,
there is you
best
have,
known book.
yeah, and maybe, but let me finish my point very quickly with that though. Is maybe we don't know more of this story, more of these concepts and understandings of the origins of Heinlein and his activities and his stories that he wrote about because of the political nature of this group. Because how else do you have people like Podesta, who literally has been running the Democratic Party since circa 1990, have that? Him and his brother ran the most powerful lobbying firm in D.C., as stated by the Washington Post, the most powerful brothers since Kennedy. How do you have that if these aren't politically? How do you have members of seemingly of this cult that are so politically strong? It seems like those two things are mutually exclusive. You have some secret cult that no one's ever really heard of or really understands, but is at the core, like a lot of our technology, our science fiction, our pop culture. But no one really knows it. Well, I think no one really knows it's because of the strong political nature behind it.
Yeah, and there's Podesta is sitting there with what's the guy who wrote the Necronomicon? Peter Levenda. I mean, those pictures are just so potent.
Levenda, and you can go on the Secretary of State website and find official pictures of Hillary Clinton with Maria Abramovich. Official State Department pictures, and she's there in the groups. So I mean, and she's obviously high up in Thelema as well, and deeply involved in the Podesta emails as well. So again, that's what I'm saying. Without having such a high political power structure behind it, there's I think that's the only reason why some of the concepts we're discussing today are for the first time, and probably for the first time for many people, right, to even understand these concepts. I mean, circle back real quick to ancient aliens and ancient alien cargo cults, as I said, that Mormonism and Thelema and Scientology are all kind of these ancient alien cargo cults. Well, John Podesta is literally on the season premiere of Ancient Aliens on the History Channel. I mean, it's kind of funny if you think about it that way, in an ironic sense.
Right. Well, there's a lot of occultists. There's a lot of occultists associated with aliens, and much more than people would know. Yeah.
But then that goes right back to Heinlein. So that's all of these alien concepts, all these space concepts. Heinlein being one of the forefathers of these space exploration concepts. I mean, there's awards given today for advancements in space exploration with his name on it. Now it's only these group of people though I find that are involved within space. The topics of space and the topics of aliens seemingly all go back to the Thelemic Scientology type circles, and Heinlein is at the center of that.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, and there's other themes like Heinlein in his book, he talks about Mike is our Prometheus. He says, "Look at me, I am the Son of Man." He's directly referencing kind of Christian themes. It's pretty remarkable, but twisting them. Yeah.
Well, no, Son of Man. I mean, isn't that a term used for Jesus, like in the Bible, right?
Right.
The actual Son of Man. The actual translation is the Son of Man.
Right. No, it goes back to Enoch. Yeah. So he's referencing himself out of Enoch. Christ is. Yeah. So yeah. So I mean, there's a perverse Christ thing, but then you go to Manson and you see the language he's using is all the same. I'm Christ and Satan. It's the same thing out of processed church ideas. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, that's exactly what it was out of. Because as I believe as Manson said himself, that he is the leader of the process church. I can't think of the leader of the process church on paper's name.
De Grimston. He said he and De Grimston are one. That's what he said.
Yeah, they're the same person, right? Exactly. Which is a very fascinating statement to make.
Right. Well, that also is kind of Christian because Christ said, "The Father and I are one." So these guys are playing off of
exactly. Yep. And they intentionally too, because if you read the materials, they're very open about intentionally.
Yes. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, but that's the kind of perversion
of Christianity.
Yeah, exactly.
And many people say that's a swastika. That Charles Manson was a white nationalist, and he's a swastika on his head. I would argue that's probably just the process church symbol, the 4 Ps.
I would agree with that too. I would 100%. Although Manson did have connections to American National Socialism through and James Mason. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, the people distributing his drugs in his drug campaign network of distribution were the Hell's Angels. So, I mean, he has the roots to the outlaw motorcycle gangs and some of the white nationalist organizations in that department. But I think ultimately speaking, what he was aiming for though was the Protestant church symbol of the four P's on his forehead.
Right. Yeah. What else about just the book? What other impressions did you have while reading through it? Do you have anything you want to add?
I mean, I think the biggest takeaway I had was, again, just that I almost felt like you could take Charles Manson and insert plot points and background of the 1960s and late 60s in Los Angeles and make that the same story, A Stranger in a Strange Land starring Charles Manson.
Yeah.
Because, again, it's almost to the same activities. It's almost precisely the same activities, much in the sense that a film like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, and the story is, or for that matter, Finnegan's Wake, is based upon the Odyssey. Homer's The Odyssey. You have the same plot points. For example, in the Odyssey, Odysseus fights the Cyclops, or Ulysses. I'm sorry, and in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, George Clooney's character Ulysses, he fights John Goodman, who's got one eye, the Cyclops. Right. So much of that same regard, you can take the same kind of storyline of The Stranger in a Strange Land and apply it to the entire Charles Manson story from his time out of prison, the brief stint he had out of prison in the late 1960s in Los Angeles. Because what are we talking about? A 2-year,
right? Not very long.
2.5-year period total. Because he left prison in what, late 66, I think, maybe, and was back in jail in 69. December 69.
Yeah.
And when they drug him back to jail in 69, if you apply the concepts of, the things that were going on at the time, LAPD is allegedly searching for the murderer of these famous Hollywood star people. It's these dirty hippies who hate them because of their money and fame and fortune, supposedly is how the media sold it, at least at the time. Well, they already have Manson's cohort, Bobby Beausoleil, in jail for the murder of Gary Hinman a month prior to the actual murders of the Tate LaBianca murders. So if they were searching for anybody, they already had one of the members of that family. The family was identified already by the sheriff's department. They were well familiar with the family. You can read that in the reports.
Right. No, they knew. They just didn't make these connections. Or supposedly,
in '68, they were very familiar with the family. So there was really there was really not much of a manhunt. And when they finally did bring him in December, it was for Grand Theft Auto. It wasn't even for the murders. I'm sorry. They had actually during that time between August and December of that year, they had Manson in jail already for Grand Theft Auto, and they let him out.
Right. That's right.
So, there wasn't really a search for Manson in particular. And when they finally did bring him in, he even said somebody was pissing on his leash, as meaning like they had shortened his leash and he had to go back to jail now.
Wow.
So
that's incredible.
It's really interesting in that regard because this is a brief period of time where Manson was let out of prison. And I'm not saying that he was intentionally trying to live the life and plot points of A Stranger in a Strange Land, but reading that story and kind of applying it to the life of Charles Manson there in Los Angeles in the late 1960s, it seems pretty accurate as far as the same tale.
It's really amazing. Just his relationship with women, how he was able to have power over these women for the short, this time, how they followed him, how he picked them up. It's all very similar. This kind of rocking and empathic. They haven't really figured out the totality of what Charles Manson was doing, but they knew that he could do it.
Right. And I don't think for a second it's anything Vincent Bugliosi told everybody he was doing, the prosecutor in the case.
No, I don't think that's the full story. I don't think.
No
way.
Is there elements of that story that could be true? Sure.
I think so.
True.
Yeah, from his perspective as a prosecutor, yeah, he collected a lot of that information, but I don't think.
I think he had a larger perspective.
Yeah. Anyway, anything else you want to add?
Yeah,
we're at 40 minutes.
Yeah, I just think in the same sense, though, Heinlein, in Manson, I just think, if you think about the stories being kind of similar, they're the same group. Heinlein and Manson, that is. Do they know each other? I have no way to know that for certain, but they were of the same circle of people.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty incredible.
Being the Scientology.
Yeah, I was. What impressed me about the book about Stranger in a Strange Land was the frame of reference that Heinlein had. That you can see his intelligence. And it's probably the same with all these guys, Asimov and Clark, these science fiction, even Hubbard. They're intelligent people. They have a good understanding of religion, psychology, ethnography, and you can see that all in Stranger in a Strange Land.
Absolutely, and I think, and to that note, I think in many regards, that's why those men are credited with certain elements in which they're credited for. Asimov, in many regards, is credited with the birth of rocketry. It all began in his stories of fiction. So we get rockets from fiction, we get space exploration from fiction. Before it allegedly happens, in the real scientific world, we get it in science fiction first.
Right. Well, Clark was credited with the geosynchronous orbit of a satellite. That goes directly to Clark back in the pitch, this thing. So you're absolutely right.
And Heinlein space exploration and Asimov rocketry.
Yeah. No, it's
so they're all kind of contributing certain elements to that storyline, and specifically Heinlein also is credited with the concepts of the birth of the supercomputer in artificial intelligence, and kind of circling back to the Silicon Valley.
Right. Clark in part as well. Clark in part. Yeah, a lot of that.
Yeah. Stuff. Yeah, and again, I don't know what it is. It just seems like there's a lot of, within the Silicon Valley atmosphere and environment, there seems to be a lot of thelemic activities going on, not the least of which being Ghislaine Maxwell's, for example, Jack Parsons, the creator of rocket fuel, head Thelemite, his lab, quote unquote, lab partner and Suicide Squad member was Frank Molina. And Molina's son is married to Ghislaine Maxwell's sister.
Right.
And they collectively, Molina's son and Maxwell's sister collectively created one of the early internet search engines.
Right. And I think that Ghislaine Maxwell's sister is affiliated with some Santa Fe club in New Mexico that uses Clark's Ashlar /
I believe you are correct. Yeah. Is that a computer science kind of based?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. It's like a
And now is that the same group where her husband claims to talk to demons? Because depending on the day of the week, I found various videos where the guy's claiming he's talking to aliens.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Sometimes he's talking to demons.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And again, that's Molina's son. That's his father was a member of the Suicide Squad.
As if there's a difference, right? Whether you're talking, it depends on who they want to tell whether they're talking to. Right?
Well, that's my point. Is there even a difference, right? Is it just the verbiage they use to talk to?
It's an excellent point
to describe it to the non-initiated.
Right. Well said. Like you keep.
And again, I don't know what it is, but they all these. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, please continue.
Oh, no, go. No, go ahead.
I wasn't going to say anything. You're right, though. I was just going to carry on your point, which is that the non-initiates get the alien story and the initiates get the devil story.
Yeah, it seems like that, right? Like I kind of feel that way when I'm reading their materials sometimes, and in certain circumstances, I can find these characters talking about speaking of demons, including
Say that last one. I missed the department. Say that last
statement. To include Peter Levenda, he's in that same group of people that sometimes claims he's talking to aliens or sometimes claims he's talking to demons.
Yeah, I got to dig up my email thread with Levenda. I've got it somewhere.
Really?
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, I have a kind of a weird connection to Levenda because.
Oh, please tell, because I think he's an interesting.
Well, when I wrote Prophet of Evil, right? So
he wrote a very interesting book on Charles Manson himself.
I didn't know that. I have to look that up. He's written interesting books. I've read his 3-part series. I forgot what it is now. But I've read some of his work.
Part 2 is about Manson in that 3-part series. It's called.
That's right.
It's the first one's about mounds. In fact, he goes into Manson and some of the ancient architecture of America, the mounds that were built here. And in part 1 and part 2 is specifically about Manson and more of the mind control aspects. He named it after the Nixon quote, "Sinister Forces." when the question about the missing 17 minutes of the Watergate tapes, they wrote it off to Sinister Forces, and deleted it.
Gotcha. Makes sense. So my connection to Lavenda is I wrote Prophet of Evil 10 years ago. Then Trine Day put out a book called The Most Dangerous something Ritual. They put out a book that literally borrowed my whole thesis without my
I've heard of that book as well.
Yeah, without my permission, by the way. But it was ghostwritten by Lavenda, and they put in the back. I mean, this is shameless. I feel sorry for them because, but Lavenda co-wrote that or secretly wrote that or was involved in it with S.K. Bain, but they put in all this nonsense at the end that totally twisted my conclusions, pointing totally different place, but carrying it off like it was all. I mean, I don't know. For me, this is my opinion, but it is my opinion that when you write books that are nonfiction, you should have integrity towards your audience, like you're trying to tell your position to them, and I don't think that book has that at all. So, in my opinion,
I would agree with you. I've actually read that book as well, and yours, and I think that you said S.K. Bain. That's correct, right? Is the author?
Yeah,
or the on paper author at least. Yeah, I felt that
supposedly
book takes you on a strange ride.
Yes,
you feel
it kind of feels like Sinister Forces. Yeah, it
does. It does in a sense. You're right. It does in a sense. Yeah, strange Sinister Forces. It takes you on a strange ride. It doesn't really reach a conclusion.
Yes,
and the conclusion.
Yes. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And also,
it does reach. You feel like I don't know if that's accurate.
Well, they made out there's going to be a nuclear bomb that blows up in Nevada. And all these things they made these predictions that were, to me, totally Fantasyland. And so that's irresponsible. On purpose,
right? Like intentionally.
I would say so. That would be my opinion. You got to be careful when you talk about that because
no, I understand.
I'm saying my opinion.
I'm explaining how I took it as more of like an intentional deception, and which I feel like is within the wheelhouse of Thelema.
I would agree with that as well. That's my opinion to agree with you as well. But anyway, so S.K. Bain has a history. S.K. Bain has his own history, bro, with he worked for somebody, I think, at the Project for the New American Century.
Oh, really? He's a Peanut guy?
Yeah, dude, it's so bad. It's so disgusting.
Peanut finds its origins in Laurel Canyon in the 1960s, not far from Charles Manson.
It just kind of makes you sick and then people really respect that publishing house in Milligan. And
it's true. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
You just get 2 bricks and bang your head together. Like you see these people just rambling on and just go, "Oh, this is so, in my opinion, so dishonest. Oh my God, super deceptive." Anyway, that's my. I had an interest.
That's interesting. That's interesting to hear about Lavenda though, writing that book.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and look up my facts. I just got to get it right, but it's been a while. But
no, I mean he's an interesting character. He caught my eye years ago with the Sinister Forces pieces and Manson and the Mounds. Right. I'm very interested in both of those subjects, the Mounds and Manson, and both subjects as they cross over one another. But also the fact that what he's up to today, he's writing books with Tom DeLonge.
Right. And I don't know if you know this.
He's a member of Tom DeLonge's To the Stars Academy, which is literally run by a very high-ranking Scientologist named Hal Puthoff.
There you go. Do you know that he's supposedly the secret writer of the Necronomicon, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I heard, actually, I went back and I found an interview. I think it was on Coast to Coast.
Yes. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Where supposedly, quote unquote, Simon is talking. And it sounds like Lavenda.
Yeah, it sure does.
I mean, if you were to ask me is that Peter Lavenda on the other end of that interview, I would say, yeah.
It would be my opinion as well. That would be my opinion as well.
Okay.
Anyway, great book. I mean, I'm glad we wrote this, and I love this theme that we've kind of followed on with Ackerman because it really gives you a better kind of, even if it's fiction, there's a lot of nonfiction in this book. There's a lot of facts.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's not an obscure book. This is in the National Archives.
Yeah.
This is one of the most revered books in America.
So it really gives an insight to that time and place and also Manson and how you can see how he could be influenced by this and really fascinating, kind of fills it out. So if you have anything to add, Vallibus, please do now.
No, I think we've nailed it here as far as a good discussion regarding both the book Stranger in a Strange Land and the odd character Robert Heinlein.
Yeah, I think you're right, man. Let's do another one. Let's figure out another one. And also, I just want to say thank you for being patient with me. Last month was really tough, so I appreciate it. I'm sorry for all of the delays and all that.
Hey, William Ramsey, same here. I appreciate your time. It was a great conversation. I enjoy it every time we get the chance to have these.
Likewise. Let's do it again soon. Take care.